So let's look at Taira no Kiyomori's government, which is the last 15 or 25 years of the Heian period. What does he do? Well, he's responsible for restoring the trade with China. This is a big deal because since 838, if you might remember, the China missions had been terminated. Okay, and China was still rather dangerous. This is right before the Mongols, so there's some strife taking place. So Kiyomori didn't allow for the missions to China to be restored. He didn't want to send anybody there to get in harm's way, but he did allow, with special exceptions, a few people to go to China and study for short periods of time. So if you wanted to go there for just a year, you had some important specific business to take care of, he would send you there, and you would have to come back. So it was on a very minor level, but he didn't restore the missions outright. Trade, however, was restored with China, and the reason for that is Kiyomori, the Taira family profited from this trade. Kiyomori personally loved Chinese art. He loved Buddhist relics. He loved the porcelain. He loved collecting them. He loved selling them. He loved doing business. And remember that the Taira clan originally came from Western Japan, and that's where the China trade was headquartered. So his province, where he's from, would benefit from the China trade, which is why the Taira were so interested in reopening trade with China for the first time in 300 years. Besides being very brutal and very vindictive, Kiyomori was actually a very, very devout Buddhist. And he built 1,001 Buddhas to retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa. This was dedicated to the retired emperor. And there's a temple that he built and devoted to the retired emperor, which contained these 1,001 Buddhas. You can still see them in Kyoto. Okay? And his entire family hand-wrote Buddhist sutras that were dedicated to the retired emperor. So initially, Kiyomori and the retired emperor got along. And actually, one of Go-Shirakawa, the retired emperor's wives, one of them was the sister of Kiyomori's wife. So they were also brother-in-laws. It was a very interesting relationship. So they were close initially. You'll see what happens later, but initially they were close. And here is one way why the Taira might have gone wrong. Some historians actually state this as being the main reason. But even though the Taira were warriors, they very, very quickly, as soon as they moved to Kyoto, they very quickly forgot their warrior culture. And essentially, they became aristocrats. So they came to Kyoto, they saw this beautiful aristocratic culture around them, and they said, if you can't beat them, join them. This is a great, beautiful things they're doing. It's a lot of fun. We have the money, we have the power. Let's join in. So they loved the waka parties. They loved the art. They loved the literature. They loved the music. And so other warrior families, started to criticize the Taira from around the country. They said, you're so corrupt. You forgot your military art. You forgot how to battle. Yes, you just won, 2 civil wars, but you've quickly forgotten that you need to hone your military training. You can't just train one day and then forget about it and become aristocrats. You're going to lose your skills. You're going to lose, battle, your warrior mentality. Kiyomori's fine because he grew up being a warrior, but his sons, some of them were actually born in Kyoto after Kiyomori took power, they were basically raised as aristocrats. They had no idea how to battle. They forgot everything that their father, had learned. They never learned it. Maybe their father told them about it or, gave them a couple of lessons in the military arts. But because they grew up as aristocrats, they started practicing these same habits and forgot what it meant to be warriors. So Kiyomori is very power hungry, and he wants to solidify his position as leader. So he gets retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa to appoint him chancellor in the year 1167. He cannot be called the regent for 2 reasons. Number one, keep in mind that the regent is a hereditary position that can only be owned by the Fujiwara family. And number two, the Fujiwara regents were still around, they just had no power. So that title was taken by somebody else, even though there's no more power that they have. So he says, I'm going to get something better. I want to be the chancellor. And that's exactly what he gets. So when he becomes chancellor, Kiyomori basically becomes a very brutal dictator. Nobody can challenge him. He actually has a secret police who do his dirty work all over the country. And they were young boys who wore this very distinctive red top, and they had this long, black hair. And what they would do, the reason he hired young boys is because they were very, they're kids, so they could go and sneak into, areas where they wouldn't be seen, like in a cellar or behind a shop or behind a wall, or like hide under something and listen. And these the secret police, they're kids, but they're a secret police. They would listen and they would see if anyone was talking badly about Kiyomori or Taira, or talking about the Minamoto and how much better they were, or whatever. And anything negative that was said, they would go and they would tell the Taira, and sure enough, the next day, they would be arrested. So whenever people in Kyoto saw these these boys, they would run away because they're the Taira's police are here. Let's run away, type of thing. So he was a very brutal dictator. Even though he opened the trade with China, which is a pro, a con was his brutal tendencies. Kiyomori's dream was to make the Taira as powerful as the Fujiwara family were. He said, we're powerful now, but we can do better. Okay, so he studies history. He's very smart, and he remembers how the Fujiwara family used marriage to control the imperial family. So he says, if I want to get even more powerful and control the imperial family even more, I'm going to do the same thing. So in 1172, he strengthens marital ties with the imperial family by having his daughter, Tokuko, marry the son of retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa, who is Emperor Takakura. So remember, Go-Shirakawa is the retired emperor. He retired, and his son became the emperor, right? So just like what the Fujiwara used to do, Kiyomori, the chancellor, has his daughter marry the emperor. So now what happens? Kiyomori becomes the father-in-law of the reigning emperor. And in 1177, they have a child, a son, Antoku, who is the crown prince. So this is the same thing the Fujiwara did, because this crown prince, his grandfather on his mom's side is Taira, and his grandfather on his dad's side is a retired emperor. So it's the same thing that the Fujiwara used to do. Okay? So Kiyomori forces his son-in-law, Emperor Takakura, to retire. He says, even though we already have a retired emperor, Go-Shirakawa, let's have two. Okay? So Takakura, son-in-law, you retire too. So we have two retired emperors. Who becomes the emperor now? Antoku. And by the way, Antoku's still a baby. He's a little baby, but Kiyomori wants him to become emperor so that he could say, I'm the grandfather to an emperor. Kiyomori wanted to have that little achievement for himself. Okay? So what happens? Kiyomori is not only the chancellor, but he's also the grandfather to the reigning emperor. He has extreme dictatorial power. Cannot be stopped anymore. And this is when Go-Shirakawa starts to get a little upset and says, you know what? What has happened here? He's getting a little too powerful for his own good. He's trying to, take more and more power from the imperial family. I don't like this. But Kiyomori was too powerful. Even the retired emperor Go-Shirakawa, master political manipulator, couldn't do anything. Meanwhile, back in Kamakura, the northern part of Honshu, far away from the capital, the late Minamoto chief, remember Yoshitomo? His son Yoritomo, who had been exiled to Kamakura, he was growing up, okay, and he was adopted by a local Kamakura warrior family known as the Hojo. The Hojo were not that powerful. They were a minor family from Kamakura. Not a big deal. But the Hojo took him in. He's an orphan, right? They took him in and they taught him all about warrior arts. They helped train him to become a very good military man. So he honed his skills there. And eventually Yoritomo marries into the Hojo family. He marries the daughter of the Hojo family, Masako. So he's a family member now. And the Hojo sort of take him under their wing. As for the other brother, Yoshitsune, who was a baby, he was told by someone that you're actually the son of the Minamoto clan. So he was surprised because he had been training to be a monk for years. I mean, when he grew up a little, he became a teenager, he learned the truth that who his real father was. And so in the late 1170s, there was sort of a resistance against the Taira, who didn't like them, and they wanted to bring the Minamoto back, to rescue the country from the Taira. So these forces basically connected the two brothers together. Yoshitsune secretly traveled to Kamakura and was reunited with his older brother, Yoritomo. They met for the first time, because Yoshitsune had been a baby when they were separated. And so the two of them join heads and they say, you know what? The Taira, it's just getting out of hand. We need to come together, create a rebellion, and restore the Minamoto to power and get rid of the Taira for good. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen.